Part 1. To Dash. In Chapter 1, Eddie reflects on time's distortion in Roland's world, recalling their journey from the Green Palace and how time feels disconnected. After traveling through the Thinny and confronting Flag, they find themselves in a strange, plague-ridden Kansas, where familiar brands like Na-Zela and Takuro are commonplace. As they continue along the path of the beam, they notice the odd number 19 recurring in their lives, especially with the items they gather, creating a sense of foreboding. While traveling through a fairy tale-like forest, Roland senses they're being followed by mysterious figures. Jake, separated briefly from the group, finds muffin balls that smell like fresh-baked bread, which they decide to eat. Roland warns that eating the muffin balls may lead to vivid dreams. Later, the group experiences strange, intense dreams, with Eddie finding himself back in New York, greeted by Jake and Oi, signaling that the journey is far from over. In Chapter 2, Jake wakes up in New York City where he and Oi are invisible to others but sense their presence is real. They encounter Eddie, who is confused but intrigued by their return to the city. Jake is drawn to a bookstore called the Manhattan Restaurant of the Mind, where they meet Calvin Tower. Eddie and Jake secretly observe Tower's interaction with three men, Balazar, Andolini, and Biondi, who are pressuring him over a document related to a vacant lot. The men want Tower to honor a financial agreement with the Sombra Corporation, but Eddie senses something dark and wrong about the situation. As Eddie examines the agreement, the chimes return, signaling a shift in reality. The world grows darker, and Eddie feels a growing sense of danger. The tension escalates as they move through the bookstore, feeling an eerie presence in the growing darkness, and are pulled back into Midworld's unsettling grip. In Chapter 3, Mia, the new personality within Susannah, fully takes over, driven by a primal hunger to feed the child growing inside her. Mia moves through a decaying castle, feasting on raw meat, displaying a disturbing blend of Odetta's refinement, Detta's viciousness, and her own insatiable cravings. Roland follows Mia as she ventures into a swampy bog, hunting and consuming anything she finds, including frogs, fish, and even a water rat. Roland contemplates the dark nature of her actions and the child she carries, questioning if this is truly a human child. As Mia feasts, Roland reflects on how he has learned to protect her while facing the growing darkness surrounding them. He tracks her movements, ensuring her safety while grappling with the complexity of her divided nature. The chapter ends with Roland returning to camp, sensing Mia's return, and finding solace in her tender moment with Eddie. In Chapter 4, Roland and his group discuss their experiences, including Eddie and Jake's flickering in and out of existence, or to dash. Roland explains it's a dangerous form of travel. They also talk about Calvin Tower, who is connected to the Sombra Corporation and may unknowingly be a custodian of the Rose. Eddie and Jake suggest buying the lot from Tower to protect it. Susannah reveals her inherited wealth, and they plan to return to 1964 to secure the money. They're interrupted by Donald Callahan, a man from their world who joins their group. Callahan explains his situation, mentioning the wolves that threaten his town, the Calla. He offers them a powerful object in exchange for their help. Callahan also reveals he possesses Black 13, an object of great power that is causing disturbances. The group is unsettled by the changes to Charlie the Choo-Choo, signaling something significant is happening. In Chapter 5, Roland and his group prepare to meet with Overholser and the people of the Calla. Roland instructs Susannah to stay close and remain silent as he wants to keep their presence understated. Overholser, a farmer, and his companions arrive, with Overholser being skeptical of Roland's intentions. Roland handles the introductions calmly, and the group discusses their mission. Overholser reveals his fears about the wolves that threaten the children of the Calla and hints at his reluctance to fight. Roland, Eddie, and Susannah discuss Overholser's motivations and the struggle to convince him to take action. Overholser admits that he might be swayed by Roland's presence, but still struggles with his fear. The conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a giant robot, identified as Andy, who offers food and a horoscope, signaling the group's continued journey. The chapter emphasizes Roland's leadership and the tension surrounding their mission. In Chapter 6, Roland and his group learn more about the people of Calla Bryn Sturgis and the harrowing effects of the wolves' raids. Overholser, the big farmer, explains how the wolves abduct children, returning them after weeks in the land of Thunderclap, physically grown but mentally damaged.